as his official car. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you our keynote speaker today, Honorable Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much, Dr. Kanit, a very profound, respected economist in Thailand and a good friend. Thank you, Ziyap, for that kind words of encouragement. Dr. Tanon, who has been a dear friend for a long time and very passionate about economic development not only in Thailand, but also in Malaysia. Now, there's so many friends here. If I start mentioning, they'll miss a few. Kun Pairoch is here. Can't see too clearly, but good. And I'm, of course, very touched by the sentiments expressed. And in the short period, in this 1 or 2 days, I've seen so much, friendship and cordiality that would hopefully translate into a stronger, meaningful, bilateral exchanges, and not only in trade, investments, but also in cultural field. Well, I'm a bit sentimental. I mean, in a way that, to me, diplomatic encounters, countries, or even in politics and governance, is about humanity and compassion. So if you talk about ASEAN in its future, it's about the people of ASEAN. They have 1 billion, not the Prime Minister, the presidents. It's about how we craft a new agenda for the future that will be able to alleviate from the problems of the poor, poor governance in some areas, and put ASEAN into new heights. I must not neglect the fact that I have very prominent colleagues here. Foreign Minister Zamri is here, Home Affairs Minister Saifuddin, and Nick Nazmi, Minister of Energy, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Home Affairs, Foreign Affairs, and of course Jun Samuel, our ambassador. And most important to me personally is, of course, Aziza. Now, about bilateral relations, before I touch on ASEAN and the future of ASEAN, Tanong put it cogently and lucidly that the potential of trade, investments, and bilateral relations has not been fully harnessed. And it's quite concerning. Why is it that among neighbors, Malaysia and Thailand has very good bilateral relations, but not substantive in terms of its trade, investments, and exchanges between governments? Although between the people or the rakyat, you say, it has been phenomenal. I mean, the huge exchanges, and of course at the border, but also in terms of tourism. And I was pleased that yesterday in our meetings, and knowing leaders like Prime Minister General Prayut, Deputy Prime Minister General Prawit, and Deputy Prime Minister Anutin, among others, I've seen that commitment and eagerness. And in the exchanges that we had between both leaders, I mean, that whole team yesterday, It is quite extraordinary, very friendly, very frank, and some of the concerns that they express very clearly, including the concern about the peace initiative and efforts in the South. I've said yesterday, my position is categorical, not uncompromising in terms of zero tolerance for violence in the South. And we will take, therefore, greater efforts from our friends, the Muslims in the South, and the establishment here, particularly the army, to try to resolve this issue amicably. This is purely an internal issue affecting Thailand. But as friends, as family members, we have been at least asked to try and facilitate the process. And we are prepared to do that in a more meaningful way. What are the concerns? The concerns, of course, the concerns of any minority, their language, their religion, their culture. And the trust deficit. And what about the concern in Bangkok is because of the skirmishes and the sporadic violence from time to time. Both are perpetrated by a minority, but also sometimes the reaction which was considered to be overreaction. But these issues are not really that contentious in the sense that it could not be resolved. I've seen and talked to leaders here who are quite passionate and determined to resolve. And I think we have to persuade our friends in the South. Some of them I know personally. I've interacted. Must be persuaded to understand that they are part and parcel of the Thai community and nation. They may preserve their rights in their culture, religion, or language, as I, in my political philosophy, have tried to do in Malaysia. Malaysia is a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious country. And I want to present this new narrative to Malaysia, that every single citizen must be recognized, their rights, their belief, and must feel they are part and parcel of this great Malaysian nation. So it is not something inconsistent. And I think this is the spirit essentially in ASEAN. You have produced leaders like Tanat Koman. We had Tun Razak those days, and Adam Malik in Indonesia, among others, who had that foresight about ASEAN, which to me is remarkable. I mean, I've been in politics a long time, I've read quite a bit, and Thai history, Philippines from Jose Rizal, and colonial period, and Malaysia's Indonesia, of course. But it's remarkable that we can actually produce great statesmen of vision for the region. Though ASEAN has not matured as an entity, and Dr. Tano made a correct reference that particularly he is a banker, so in terms of financial, trade, investment, you can see this deficit. But in terms of his vast achievements in peace, security, and good neighborhoodness, that is unprecedented internationally or globally. So I think we in the present generation and the future generation must take cognizance of that and try to relieve the initial spirit, the idealism, and the foresight in the among the leaders of that generation, and work beyond that. Unfortunately, we have to deal with this semi-turbulence or in Myanmar. Yesterday, I appealed to Prime Minister Prayut because you have to face the major brunt because the border with Myanmar. But we in Malaysia have to face a major problem of close to 200,000 refugees. Most of them Rohingyas, some from other ethnic groups from Myanmar. Of course, we say engagement. We've been engaging for the last 40 years. But there's a limit that countries can do. But I believe, and I've talked to President Jokowi of Indonesia, who's now chairman of ASEAN, talked to General Prayut, Prime Minister Hsien Loong, and the Sultan of Brunei. And hopefully next week or so with President Bongbong Marcos. I call him Bongbong, I don't know whether there's a correct diplomatic name. I mean, I'll be guided by the foreign minister. There's also the problem of not using notes. Now, just to appeal to them that we have to go beyond. We don't want outsiders to interfere, right? We don't want the United States or Europe to tell us what to do. But we have to do something. We have to be courageous enough to try and resolve this. Well, they say it's internal affairs of Myanmar. Well, right. I don't think we should go and interfere and enter into a battle with them. But it's affecting us. It's affecting Thailand, huge number of refugees, affecting Bangladesh, who's struggling to uplift the economy, and Malaysia, which has the largest number of refugees from Myanmar. I'm junior in the game, among the leaders of ASEAN, in terms of responsibility and not age, and experience. And I have, of course, appealed to them and would seek their wisdom and guidance in trying to resolve this. But this is, of course, a negative side. Block in the whole ASEAN move in dealing with the future. We are stuck with the past. We're stuck with the issue of atrocities. We're stuck about the issue of discrimination and intolerance and gross injustice. And having said that, we should still go beyond. And this is what I believe ASEAN leaders must reflect upon in this year and the years ahead. I've said there were initiatives. I remember Kun Supachai from Thailand, a good colleague who was so determined to make sure he pushed ahead the trade agenda amongst the ASEAN nations. I think finally he was quite frustrated. Finally he went to WTO and did reasonably well there. And he had that foresight, as I said, to say, yes, we inherit a phenomenal success in ASEAN collaboration. But we must go beyond. It's about economy. It's about connectivity. It's about digitalization. It's about new investments. It's about using and having this as an important base for the great powers economically, both for China or United States. It is unfortunate that we have to grapple with the problem of tensions between China and United States. Very little we can do, other than making sure that we remain fiercely independent whilst engaging well with China and the United States and benefiting in terms of new investments, new facility, which would positively affect the vast majority of our people. So ASEAN FTA and all the other initiatives, which has been ongoing. I mean, The foreign minister seemed very concerned because he thinks I'm too critical of ASEAN. No, I'm not critical of ASEAN. I am acknowledging the vast success, but I'm just trying to push this issue of trade and investment by using this comparative advantage of countries. Those days we compete against each other. If there's a country producing cars in Thailand, then Malaysia car, and Indonesian car, and we compete with each other. We can't even think of someone should produce lorries and the other one bus or the other car. We can't think in that direction because we are fiercely independent and, in the event, protectionist. So I think going beyond, because there are new areas where we can ensure that we would benefit. Because this relates to the issue of paradigm and technology. And the issue of paradigm and technology means that these new areas must be fully harnessed. We are still lagging behind. I mean, Malaysia is, of course, I mean, in that sense, comparatively, Thailand is more successful. I mentioned in food technology, in digitalization, in the modernization of the energy sector. And I think we would work together and benefit also from your planned new investments, which I will personally ensure that is given the desired support. We had, of course, the Chiang Mai initiative on trying to have new arrangements in the financial sector. Tanong even referred to the Asian Monetary Fund, which we thought could be a buffer. We cannot have the international financial infrastructure decided and determined by one corner of the earth. We will have to work with them, but we should have our own domestic, regional, and Asian strength. Not to necessarily compete, but only to have like a buffer zone.
Menangi hadiah hebat dengan Tap Track Win. Anda mungkin memenangi voucher petrol atau wang tunai. Hanya
And from those of us who had some experience dealing with it, it would help immensely. You know, every time there is a sign of problem brewing, even those days, we immediately have a session and start politely cautioning each other when we look at the balance of payments. We look of, for example, the issue of the fall of the currency. I mean, issues like that, immediately our friends must be alerted and sometimes cautioned. Because sometimes you are also faced by your own internal domestic pressures and politics. Those days, of course, we are ruled by somewhat authoritarian leaders. And the finance ministry, of course, the most unpopular in the cabinet. That's the reason why temporarily I'm holding the finance portfolio. so that my colleagues will not be too rough against the Minister of Finance because the Prime Minister was there. But notwithstanding what I have said, the proposal, the ASEAN Plus 3, which is somewhat related to the initial proposal on the Asian Monetary Fund. It should be revised in the context and the demands and the dictates of the period, which it should include Japan, China, South Korea, or if they would like to include Australia, India. I have no strong views on that. I will have to respect and build a consensus among ASEAN. So I am still optimistic with the future of ASEAN. We should carve Myanmar out for now. And I don't think the Myanmar issue should frustrate our moves. It would be ideal if we could have just a strong consensus in giving a strong message to the Myanmar regime. You have every right to have your own domestic policies and priorities. But no country in these times should ever continue with discriminatory policies, marginalization of their people, or intimidating, or worse, perpetrating violence against their own people. So hopefully that position has been taken. To be fair, ASEAN has, although in the diplomatic nuances, have repeatedly stated this position, but to no avail. But ASEAN is also mindful that they don't want other regions to be dictating. So there is a not necessarily contradiction in terms, but that should be taken as a challenge. If we don't want others to interfere, then we will have to promote, suggest new mechanisms to make sure that these atrocities perpetrated against their own people must end. I mean, first, we don't tolerate them. Secondly, the repercussions is affecting the whole of ASEAN. And I said, I mean, even beyond ASEAN, like Bangladesh. It is not just Malaysia, Thailand, in terms of refugees. Indonesia is facing that issue now. But in conclusion, I would say that to me, we have achieved some remarkable results. But for Malaysia, as I have said yesterday in my remarks to our Malaysian diaspora in Thailand, we will have to grapple with problems of good governance, ridding the country of endemic corruption, and to give meaning to what we believe and understand as democratic accountability. Democracy to us in Malaysia is not about elections per se. Democracy is about accountability. Leaders are not only accountable once in 4 or 5 years to their people. Leaders are accountable to the mandate, to the spirit of the Constitution, and to honor the promise to the people that they are supposed to lead a clean government that will use resources to champion, to promote the economy, propel the economy, yes, but to ensure there's justice for all its citizens. And I think that is a major challenge in Malaysia. Yes, mentioned about the tribulations of the past, but I think, as you said, I'm talking about the future of ASEAN. So if Anwar comes here talking about the past, a lot of story to say, but as Mandela used to say, we must forgive and move on. But we should not forget, because that should teach us and the people that any injustice should not be tolerated. I've learned the hard way. The tribulations is not easy. It was easy to say. I was here last few years to launch the book by Learned Queen's Counsel about the Anwar trials. Even then, I refrained from dwelling too much about the past, and to say that we have to learn from that experience how the enforcement agencies can be compromised, how even the judiciary can be complicit or working at the behest of the executive. We must make sure there is rule of law, democratic accountability, and to ensure that the economy must be propelled, not to serve the interests of a few, but to serve the interests of the majority of our people. So let me thank you again to the Kani, Tanong, the Malaysia Thai Chamber for giving me this opportunity. I'm always happy to be back here in Bangkok, and I must apologize in the short trip. I'm not able to meet all, but please be assured that you have in me, personally in Malaysia, a true friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. Thank you very much for sharing with us your experience and perspective on numerous issues, ranging from Thai-Malaysia relationship, how we should foster better relations and improve trade and investments, and all the way to ASEAN, reminding us to still be optimistic and yet having a very clear standpoint about what to do with Myanmar. And also thank you for reminding us to learn from the past in order to pave the way for a better future. So next would be a Q&A session conducted by Dr. Kanit Sangsupan. So may I invite once again Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim to please come on stage, and Dr. Kanit as well. Please give them both a warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for the great speech we have. This is the first time we see your view, we see your opinion on ASEAN, and it's a very great one. I believe we are setting the new tones. As I said, we're going to make another history. So the history is here today. Due to the time constraint, we lag behind by 20 minutes. The organizer has requested the questions from the repute key business persons from Thailand and Malaysia combined, also some of the press as well. So that I would like to ask Green Kai Tien Nukun, Chairman of Federation of Thai Industry, to give the first questions to the audience, to the Prime Minister Anwar, please. Thank you.
Thank you. His Excellencies, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, allow me to ask you. I kept warning our members of the federations of the Thai industry about the global geopolitical challenges. So I think that they would affect us a lot. How do you think that ASEAN can help mitigate the risks to the business in Thailand and in Malaysia? Thank you.
Well, a short response. If you talk about the problematique, as the French say, the problem, you have Ukraine, Russia, you have now the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, and you have what is called the calamity in post-normal times, massive migration, spontaneous and simultaneous, the problems. Yes. You have this close to our region, China, Russia, United States, tension, other than Ukraine, Russia. Well, there are problems. But there are problems that we are not in the position to help resolve. But as you know, as a businessman, that we can look forward positively and use to our advantage as long as we remain peaceful and a responsible governance. I mean, after all, Thailand, in a small way Malaysia, Vietnam, has benefited immensely from the so-called tension between China and United States. So I think we should move in that direction. In the field of, for example, digitalization and the new services, there are areas abound that we could finally utilize to our advantage. I would say, I mean, you know, after that's the probably what I learned after being in imprisonment for too long, that you always look forward and to the bright things. There are 90 blocks there. You choose the 10 blocks available. And of course, a good businessman is also a good politician in that sense, although in different fields. Please, businessmen shouldn't enter politics too much. It'll be confusing to us. But instead of looking at the 90 blocks and you can give lectures about the problems and hardships, you can use what is that, Michael Porter wrote about this comparative advantage. But I would say, what is there for us if you choose and find? And that's why I say the collaboration within ASEAN countries is so pivotal, because we are talking about 500 million people. You know, have we harnessed that? No. Have you looked at the possibility of increasing bilateral trade and regional trade, intra-ASEAN and bilateral, Malaysia, Thailand? No, because we assume that the ground is greener elsewhere. And I think that is a mistake. So the courage of business leaders, as also political leaders, is to be prepared to have this meaningful paradigm shift.
Very good. That's very satisfying for all of us. Thank you very much. The second questions will come from Dr. Kiam Bu. She is the chairperson of the Malaysian Thai Chamber